Formula One on 5 Live.
Hello and welcome to Saturday at Silverstone. It's qualifying day, but before we get to that all-important hour and the fight for pole position, we have one final practice session for the drivers to get their cars dialed in. Up in the commentary box is myself, Harry Benjamin, and from our view, which looks right over the pit lane, just above the McLaren garage, I can confirm it is grey, overcast, and the temperatures have slightly dropped from yesterday as well. Air temperature 19.7 degrees, track temperature 25.5 degrees. So different conditions then for today. So that should set us up 1996 F1 World Champion Damon Hill, who was alongside me, quite nicely going into qualifying later on.
Yes, absolutely brilliant, isn't it? I mean, I just cycled from the other end of the circuit. I was doing a tribute for Eddie Jordan, a photograph, and I can tell you there's a headwind. On a bicycle you feel it, and there's a headwind that's going to make a difference to these cars, how they handle in this session. I think it's much stronger than yesterday, and as you say, cooler. So how that affects them, we'll find out.
Yeah, well, we saw it yesterday as well. A couple of spins through Gabriel Bortoleto, Pierre Gasly coming through Copse, just slightly being caught out by the wind, even for Carlos Sainz coming out of Luffield as well, asking, well, was there a bit of a gust there? Yes, was the reply on team radio. So wind is really crucial factor here to bear in mind when trying to get your perfect lap in.
Yeah, it's an airfield, and they built it on a bit of exposed ground, and that has been the history of Silverstone from 75 years ago when the first Grand Prix was here. And it is a typically windy place.
How has your Silverstone week been so far, Damon? Busy?
It's been very busy, and I've never seen Silverstone looking so enormous. I mean, there are grandstands. There's the new hotel on the other side of the circuit there, which is unbelievable. It's amazing. There's people on the terraces. There's grandstands. There's hospitality units. It's packed. And it was a vast place, as although we're showing on a helicopter shot, actually, as I'm speaking, you can't see it. But I mean, basically, it's in this wonderful Northamptonshire, bordering on Buckinghamshire part of the country. And at this time of the year, we've had such a lovely warm summer, June and July. But now we've got the more typical weather has come in, and people putting their jackets on.
I'm not against it, I have to say. It's been quite hot the last couple of weeks. I'm okay for a little bit of cool air.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we like to cool off a little bit, but yeah, it's not raining. But rain, of course, could be a possibility tomorrow. That always spices things up.
Yeah, well, we shall see, but just a few moments away then, a few minutes away from getting the green light on at the end of the pit lane for the drivers tackle what is one of, and we are biased, one of the best tracks on the calendar here at Silverstone. Just over 3.66 miles, 5.89 kilometres, 18 corners, 8 to the left and 10 to the right, and celebrations galore throughout the year, throughout the weekend. It's back in 1950, the first Grand Prix held right here at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. So a lot of fond memories being celebrated. We've got some new liveries, slight tweaks to liveries up and down the teams for this weekend, which we will describe to you in full detail when they head out onto the track. But before they do that, let's head down to pit lane with Jenny Gow.
Thank you. Yes, a blustery start to the day here. We've had some spots of rain already. If I look up, very different from yesterday. No bright blue sky, grey leaden sky above us. Will we get rain? That's the question. I've been talking to some of the engineers, mechanics. A few spots are likely, but I don't think anything dramatic. But let's wait and see what today brings.
Yeah, certainly will. And I think we just had a message pop up on our screens confirming from Race Control that the start of Free Practice 3 will be delayed. Looks like they've got the marshals out there with some brushes trying to brush off perhaps a bit of gravel, some marbles as well. We've had a few support categories out already. British Formula 4 is here, Formula 3 as well. We've also had some hot laps out there, and I have to say, I've just done a hot lap around this track in a McLaren.
Have you?
I wasn't the driver. I was the passenger.
Oh.
But I had Sam Bird driving me in a McLaren.
Yeah, very good.
My word, he was wringing the neck of that car.
Well, that's what he's paid to do. And Harry, how did you feel about it? Was it were there a few moments there going into Stowe?
Oh, going into the first corner was enough. From a standing start, straight foot down on the throttle, straight into the right-hander. He was absolutely the tail end kicking out. He was not holding back one bit. And then at least you get sort of the Wellington straight to kind of just sort of recover and catch your breath a bit. And then suddenly slams on the brakes, and I'm going, full forward into the dash with helmet on, obviously.
Yeah.
The helmet doesn't quite fit my head either, but it's such an experience. And this track, I mean, with the corners that it's made up of, it really is a brilliant racing track.
And they're obviously very fast sports cars, but they're nothing like the performance of a Formula One car. And so to watch these things in the flesh, in reality, when you go up to watching through the Beckett section, they are absolutely astounding how they're nailed to the road. And you can see the load transferring right to left, and the tyres kind of being almost like they're being torn off the rims. So these drivers have developed necks that you don't have any other use for that neck. I mean, maybe rugby players and boxers, perhaps, are the other people I can think of who need necks that big.
Yes, standing by the side of the track at Beckett's is one of the all-time great sporting spectacle experiences, I think. Television pictures just don't translate. It's absolutely awesome is the only word for it through Beckett's trackside, Damon, isn't it? And I don't know what it must have been like in the cockpit driving one of those things through there.
Fantastic. Yeah, but you wouldn't believe the wind. You don't need that much of a wind, and it upsets the handling of the car, even though it has literally tons of downforce. And I'm just speculating as to why we've got delay here, because there were some old cars, some historic F1 cars that were going around. Some of them were the ex-Jordan cars. And I'm wondering whether there's some oil spilt or something somewhere.
Well, they were certainly brushing up some gravel from the track, one of the corners I saw on the pictures a while ago. But I'm so jealous, Harry, actually. I would love to have a hot lap round here.
Oh, we could sort that out for you, Andrew.
I had one round Abu Dhabi with Lando Norris a few years ago, and George Russell took me around Austin. But it was in the wet and he didn't know the track. So he was like...
Yeah, I had full confidence in Sam. I think you need the confidence of the driver, that's for sure.
My favourite is the Nordschleifer, I have to say. I've been driven around the Nordschleifer by Bernd Schneider in a AMG 63, E63, whatever it was back in the 90s. But also I've been round it 5 up in a Volvo Estate with Gilles de Ferran driving, and that was pretty awesome. Even though it was a Volvo Estate.
Doesn't matter. We love a Volvo Estate. That's the voice, by the way, the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson, who, if any of the teams are listening, is desperate for a hot lap. I'm sure we can get Sam Bird to get back onto the circuit and hook you up.
Was he trying to scare you for all the mean things you'd said to him in commentary, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, he took one look at me and thought, why have I got to drive you around this track? Also, folding myself into the McLaren was a whole mission as well. But it was good fun. You have a whole new appreciation through Copse, as you were saying, Damien, but Magnussen, Beckett and Chapel, just how technical that is, even in a supercar where you're going to close to a minute slower than the Formula One cars. We have traffic coming through Magnussen, Beckett. Even just having to navigate that.
Traffic now. Do they ruin your lap?
Well, the thing about the McLaren, I've been told about the hot lap cars, is it's so much faster than all the other ones.
Yeah.
So
we
it's
were
like a completely
past
different
the Alpine,
dimension.
the Aston Martin, we waved goodbye. It was a good one. Anyway, talk off McLaren. I think Jenny's down outside the garage.
I am, and everyone's wrapped up very warmly, which is a stark contrast to yesterday. Lando Norris just looking at the computer screen with his performance engineer and race engineer, and also looking at some of the people and fans that have entered the grandstands. And one of them has a helmet design on his hair. He's dyed it neon green and it looked amazing, and Lando just had a wry smile as he watched on. I mean, the fans here and their love of Lando, it's unbelievable. And speaking to Andrea Stella as he made his way, the team principal, over to the pit wall, he said he had to go back inside to get his gilet. So he's got 3 layers on. He's feeling the chill in Silverstone, but he said, just look at Zach Brown, who's next to him on the pit wall. He's only got his t-shirt on. Hard as nails.
He's used to it, used to that British weather, that's for certain.
Well, Zach's got a little bit more insulation than Andrea Stella, hasn't he, to be fair? So.
Andrew, you're not going to get a hot lap talking like that.
Oh, Zach won't mind.
Zach's actually a pretty nifty driver. He might drive you around.
I think they're making too much of it. I've been out there. It's beautiful. It's a bit humid and a little bit cool, but as you say, perfect temperature. I don't think we need gilets and woolly hats.
No, Damon Hill says no to gilets. Come on, sort it out, McLaren. We're going to get underway in hopefully about a minute's time.
I've got a question.
Yes.
When did a body warmer become a gilet?
when it became cool.
Yeah, I think it's after those protests in France where people started talking about gilets jaunes and stuff, and it sort of caught on. But
or maybe it was when cycling became trendy.
I just feel uncomfortable saying, where's my gilet? That doesn't seem right.
Well, these are the kind of crucial questions that we will try and answer for our audience in Free Practice 3, as we are finally, though, underway after that little 5-minute delay. Green light on at the end of the pit lane. Straight out onto the track is the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, and for those who wish to do a sync up with the pictures, it's 59 minutes and 35, 34, 30... No, I'm going to do that again because I was looking at the wrong one. It's 59 minutes and 31, 30, 29 seconds remaining of Free Practice 3. There we go. We're all warming up today, aren't we? Gasly and Colapinto straight out onto the track. It's not been a good weekend so far for the two Alpine drivers. They have been struggling out there. And actually, while they get up to speed, Andrew, if we just reflect on yesterday's running, particularly what we saw from FP2, where we got the chance to see some long runs, this Ferrari pace, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, it seems promising.
Yeah, Ferrari were genuinely quick yesterday. McLaren were talking about it. The Ferrari drivers were admitting it. Hamilton was fastest in the first session. Leclerc and Hamilton second and third fastest, splitting the McLarens in the second session. And Leclerc was the fastest on the long runs later in the session. But the thing is, George Russell was speculating that it might be to do with the temperature, because it was quite hot. It was much warmer yesterday. Maybe air temperature wasn't so different. It's 19.5 at the moment. It was about 24 yesterday. But the track temperature, very different today. Only 24.5 degrees right now. It was 40 degrees in P2 yesterday. And the Mercedes and the Ferrari have opposite characteristics. The Ferrari struggles to get its tyres up to temperature, which is why it's weak in qualifying and much stronger in the race generally. Whereas the Mercedes doesn't like hot weather. Russell might not be right. The Ferrari might be genuinely competitive here. And let's not forget that it's only a week since they introduced a new floor upgrade in Austria. Sometimes it takes teams a little bit of time to get the most out of an aerodynamic upgrade, because they stick it on the car, they see the numbers, but then it might provide you more optimum downforce as you expected, but then there might be some setup tuning that you need to play around with, and that's not always possible to get on top of in the confines of one race weekend. But they've had a couple of days of data to go through. Coming to Silverstone, of course, Silverstone's got different aerodynamic characteristics or requirements of the car as well. So it could be that Ferrari have unlocked something with that new floor. Let's see if their pace continues today.
Yeah, a few teams bringing some upgrades to the floor this weekend. McLaren, Red Bull, Aston Martin, Haas, Racing Bulls have got a new front wing. Williams running some new floor fences, and Sauber too, all with some tweaks, able to bring those relatively easy here because most of the team bases are not too far away, so they can always put a new floor in the back of the car if you put the seats down and drive them in, Damon.
Yeah, I mean, the distance getting to the track is not the issue, it's the cost of these things and the time, and also they have a cost cap, so every time they develop a new part, they're spending some of their precious money on development that they don't want to reach the ceiling before too long. But because they've got completely new regulations coming in next year, it may well be that a lot of the teams are bringing these things in and getting to the upper limit of their spend, because really they want to be moving on anyway. They're not going to be developing these cars right up to the very end of the season.
No, I think we're getting to that point now, aren't we, where we probably see the last of any kind of upgrades. Williams, for instance, have been saying for quite some while that they're not really bringing too many more bits to the car. Full focus on next year. Still drivers getting into their cars. Only 4 out on track at the moment, the 2 Alpines and the 2 Aston Martins. So let's check back in with Jenny. You found yourself outside Red Bull, Jen?
I haven't. It's very relaxed down here. In fact, Yuki Tsunoda's just talking to his race engineer on the left side of the garage. He's got his overalls undone around his waist. If I look over to the right-hand side, Gianpiero Lambiase is back this weekend. You'll be pleased to know that's Max's race engineer. And Max also overalls wrapped around his waist. Just laughing and joking with Dr. Helmut Marko, the Red Bull advisor, on his left-hand side. There's no real rush to get out on track. And just to give you an update, Max is running the skinny rear wing.
Thank you, Jen. as we get a practice pit stop, or indeed a pit stop from Lance Stroll in Aston Martin. Is he sent back on his way? Let's hear from Gasly on the radio.
How was the balance, please?
I think balance overall better, but still no grip.
Okay, copy that.
Yeah, Gasly struggling for grip out there as he's just making his way very slowly through Copse. The fastest time currently is his teammate, but only 2 times on the board from both the Alpines. Franco Colapinto with a 1:28.518. Pierre Gasly not too far behind, a 1:28.552. Stroll's out there, just coming out on an outlap. So too for Fernando Alonso. Everybody else staying put in their garage and making those last few tightening of the seatbelts and the helmets before they head out. The term gilet, or what was previously known as a gilet coat or body warmer, became more common relatively recently, with the word gilet itself being French for vest. Did we know that? We did know that. So I think it's just I think it's just a popularity as it's gotten more popular in modern day fashion.
But it was
from the 15th century it's been around.
But when Damon and I were
since the 15th century,
a body warmer,
and it's only just come across the channel.
But now they've made it sort of cool.
But do you not remember?
Surely the point is it keeps you warm. But anyway,
Well,
Harry, you might not even have been born at this stage, but back in the mid-80s, when Back to the Future...
Might not have been born. No.
When Back to the Future came out, for example, and Michael J. Fox became very famous for wearing what was then known as a body warmer, Damon, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know. It looked very cool. Cowboys wore them.
Yeah,
but they were much more puffy. They were kind of much more down-filled, weren't they?
Yeah.
It means your arms could stick. You could wear a T-shirt and keep warm with one of those on. They were great, but I think they're slightly different to the gilets they have now, which are kind of light.
But you and I both like a cycle, and I'm not a massive gilet fan, but gilets are definitely a big thing in cycling.
Well, yeah, they're not padded, are they? They're just a wind cheater in a way. But we're getting deep into.
Well, we'll finish off. Hang on. The specific adoption of gilet as the primary term in English-speaking context, particularly the more modern, often technical or fashion-forward versions, is a more recent development, possibly influenced by a wider appreciation for French fashion terminology.
Correct.
That's all I can tell you.
So not like couture and stuff like that.
Yes. So there we got to the bottom of that gilet chat. If you missed it earlier,
thank goodness.
Educate, inform, and entertain. There you go.
That is our remit here on the BBC. Thank you for joining us for Free Practice 3 on 5 Sports Extra 3 and wherever you may be listening to us across BBC Sounds. There are only 2 cars out on track, hence the gilet chat. But we're getting a little bit more action now in the pit lane. Lewis Hamilton is making his way to the end of the pit lane. Jenny Gow's watching.
Yes, he's just pulled out of the garage on a brand new set of soft tyres, trundling down the sunken pit lane to the end, and the fans will be very happy to see him on track.
Already waving is Lewis Hamilton. He absolutely loves it here. I mean, the records speak for themselves. 9 times a winner around this circuit, 8 times a pole sitter, 15 podiums. But it's been 13 races in his Formula One career with no podium finish. It's the longest streak for Lewis Hamilton. Damon, could it end here? Could he get his first Grand Prix podium for Ferrari come the checkered flag on Sunday?
I have a feeling that this car goes well at this track. Ferrari typically seems to have gone well. There were certain really bizarre things about teams, and they change their cars year to year, but somehow or other there's certain features that make a team's car go well at certain tracks. I remember the Jordan always used to go well at Spa, and maybe it's because this track is very like Spa in its high-speed nature and its track surface as well. So anyway, long history they've had. I think they've won more than anyone else at any other mark, haven't they, Ferrari at Silverstone?
Yeah.
It's been a bit
18 wins for them here.
So wouldn't it be great, Lewis, to at least get on the podium? I think it's a possibility.
It could be. He was quick in FP1. Lando Norris was fastest in FP2. And all British, 1, 2, 3, perhaps on Sunday afternoon. We shall see. It was George Russell on pole here last year as well. And now we have these lower temperatures. That could prove more beneficial for the Mercedes drivers. Kimi Antonelli looking to bounce back after his lap 1 collision with Max Verstappen last time out. We've described it a bit as a roller coaster for Kimi Antonelli, a proper sort of rookie season for the rookie. He had that high in Canada, got his first podium, became the 3rd youngest podium sitter, and then the crash in Austria. He's going to carry a 3-place grid penalty into Sunday as well. But is this just... This is a rookie season.
It's a learning, yeah, absolutely. It's to be expected. And he's finding out. He bounces back, I think, from these incidents quite well. He seems to get over it quite quickly. It's not like he's got his head in his hands and is as destroyed by a mistake, one single mistake. He's prepared to accept that, and he's got pace. There's no worry about that. He's got the speed, he's got the pace, he's got the intelligence. Just hasn't got the experience yet.
Lewis Hamilton is the sound you're hearing, making his way through the exit of Luffield, through the right-hander of Woodcote.
It was a bit messy, Harry. We're watching the onboard and we can see him wrestling a little bit with that car and going around Copse now. Sounds like it's almost flat through there, and it's quite tricky with the wind behind you if you go into some of these corners, because the car is being pushed into the corner and you can't get to the apex. He's going through the Beckett section now and onto the Hangar Straight. This is now heading straight into the wind, and this literally nails the car. It gives you more downforce, so when you turn in for Stowe, you can turn in much more quickly, as he's doing now, than you could do if the wind is behind you going into the corner.
And just some perspective on this lap and the performance of the Ferrari car and any other Formula 1 car for that matter. They were showing the in-car data on the onboard camera feed there. And as Hamilton was going through Beckett's, the right, left, right, 5G on each of those corners. And in fact, Damon, when he was driving the FW14B, the car you used to develop, Nigel Mansell used to call that a 9G snap over, didn't he?
Yeah, Nigel had a way with describing his own antics in a racing car that was very entertaining, and it got the crowd going, that's for sure.
48 minutes and 49, 48, 47, 46 seconds remaining of free practice 3. Lewis Hamilton now the quickest man out there, only 3 lap time set, 1:27.3 for the 7-time champ. We have had the 2 Aston Martins out there. They went out on the hard tyres, now back into the pits. Jen, what more do you have?
Yeah, I'm guessing they're scrubbing in those hard tyres. It's the practice that Aston Martin do every race weekend. They're struggling down here with temperatures. It's so much cooler than it was yesterday, as we've already discussed, gilet-wise. But as you go up and down the pit lane, they're changing their blanking, they're changing the temperatures, and they've actually just changed the drums on both cars at Aston Martin, just to try and control those temperatures and the braking levels a little bit more. So both drivers just getting ready to go back out.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, and they brought an upgrade this weekend to the Aston Martins. They were doing a back-to-back in free practice 1 with Fernando Alonso had the upgrades, and then Lance Stroll bolted them on. Stroll, for FP2, Stroll was actually up inside the top 7 for both practice sessions. So let's see if they might be able to convert that into some more much-needed points, because when we look at this midfield fight, Damon, in the constructors, Williams sort of sitting pretty in 5th. They're 19 points clear of Racing Bulls, but then there's only a handful that are separating Racing Bulls, Haas, Aston Martin, Sauber. Actually, Alpine are being left a little adrift at the field.
Yeah, typically, and also Sauber have been showing form again. It's been surprising actually, and they've actually made some progress, and I think that has probably surprised Alpine, because Alpine were looking quite strong in the early part of the season. So much to play for there in the middle to the back end of the Constructors' Championship, and huge amounts to be won and lost for these teams as Formula One continues to grow its budgets, its profitability. They share in, the teams share in it, and they get a varying amount depending on how well they do.
We're just seeing some replays of Nico Hülkenberg, Sauber out there. Of course, both cars in the points in Austria. First time they've done that since Qatar 2023. And it was Gabriel Bortoletto's first points in his Formula One career, which, to be honest, having watched all weekend Gabriel Bortoletto in Austria, he was strong all weekend. It was a first full weekend where I felt like we saw what the hype was about around Bortoletto.
Yeah, I think, Austria is a pretty unique circuit, and some people were talking about how Lando always goes well there, and it's always been a circuit that suits his style. What is it that makes that circuit so different? There's not many corners. A lot of it is just braking, turning right, and then accelerating away, and a lot of DRS, and then you've got a few corners in the middle which are high speed. But we come to Silverstone now. This is the first time, I think, maybe apart from Spain, Barcelona, where it's a very high-speed circuit with a lot of load. There's not much braking here. Jenny was talking about the brake drums. The energy that goes into the brakes is a problem usually. for these cars because it can overheat the wheel, overheat the tyres, and then the tyres go out of their performance window. But this circuit, one of the problems will be getting the temperature just right because you don't use the brakes much. A lot of the time you're just really going flat out. So it's low on braking, but juggling the temperatures is so crucial to how they get the performance out of the tyres, and the tyre build up and all these things are an exact science. So they will be working very hard to give the driver the tyre, brake, wheel temperature and pressure that they need for the right moment, and not overcooking during a race. But it's one of their problems, I think, will be getting heat in the tyres right here.
Yeah, certainly is. Let's update on the air temperature. Still around 19.7 degrees. Track temperature has actually dropped slightly from the beginning of the session, down to 24.9, according to the data that we get supplied with. I think Lando Norris is about to get the signal to head out onto the track. He's bolted in to his McLaren. Let's just bring you up to speed with how the championship standings look, by the way. Oscar Piastri leads the Drivers' Championship, but of course Lando Norris closed down that gap slightly with his win in Austria. The gap now just 15 points. Max Verstappen is still third. Didn't score any points, of course, last time in Austria after being the victim of Kimi Antonelli's lap 1 crash. He is now 61 points back from Oscar Piastri. Then it's George Russell and Charles Leclerc, the top 5. And at the top of the constructors, it is McLaren who lead the way by some margin, over 200 points clear of Ferrari. Then come Mercedes and Red Bull, the top 4, with then, as we were discussing a little earlier, that midfield battle with Williams all the way down to 10th place Alpine. Still, I expect, will go all the way to the wire. If we reflect a little bit, Damon, on, we haven't actually heard your thoughts on it yet, so on Lando Norris in Austria last weekend and what that will do for him coming here. He's got his own grandstands here that have been sold out, the Lando stands in fluorescent yellow coming through Stowe, and a lot was made, I thought, coming into Austria in particular, was how in those final moments of qualifying in particular for Lando Norris, that's where he sometimes drops it, but he didn't. He nailed it in Austria. Have we unlocked something? Has Lando Norris unlocked something here from Austria onwards?
I would say that performance in Austria, of course we thought this after Monaco as well, but the performance in Austria was very good, very dominant. He was under pressure actually during the race massively from Oscar, and he withheld that pressure and got it over the line, and he had to really be working hard. Mentally, that would have been a very hard race for him. But I would say he came out of that thinking, I have hardened myself for the championship. I've shown that even under the pressure from Oscar, if you're putting me under pressure for an entire race, I did not make much of a mistake, as we were watching an onboard of Lando going around waving to his grandstands and his crowd and his adoring fans. But this is the story of Lando this year. Is he's clearly got the ability. He's a super quick racing driver, but he talks himself out of it sometimes when he feels down. And I think this is also part of the change we're seeing. Some radio.
Wind similar to P2, 20 to 25 kph tower wind, turn 3 braking.
That was Oscar Piastri's radio, Lando Norris's teammate, just being told where the wind is on track. Piastri's just coming through Vale into Club now as Lando Norris sets off on a lap, now making his way down the Wellington Straight. Yeah, to finish that point, I think that he knows now that he's this is a very critical part of his career, his life, because one of these guys is, McLaren drivers, is going to become world champion. And I think he was providing the advantage to Oscar psychologically was some of the things he was saying and doing. And I think he started to learn that that's now partly the game. And in this, there's a long way to go yet. So 15 points is nothing. Halfway now. So still a whole half a season to go as Lando Norris makes his way through Maggots, through Beckett's, bit of traffic as well to deal with of Lance Stroll's. Aston Martin keeps to the outside as Norris gets spat out onto the Hangar Straight. DRS for him, the rear wing flies open, getting up to speeds of over 300 kilometres an hour before a light touch on the brakes into the right-hander of Stowe, past the Lando stands that wave adoringly to Norris, downhill into the braking zone for the left-hander of Vale. A quick double right-hander sees you out through the final corner at Club and across the line for Lando Norris, puts himself in second on the soft tyre, 4/10 adrift of Lewis Hamilton. It's Hamilton fastest at 1:26.5, Norris, Stroll, and actually as I say that, they all get knocked down a peg because Charles Leclerc and the other Ferrari has just gone top with a 1:26.4, 35 thousandths of a second separating the two Ferraris. And now there's a Max Verstappen separating the two Ferraris, seeing more lap times come in now.
Yeah, I don't think that was a full lap, a hard lap from Lando. I think it was probably a bit more of an exploration and kind of settle yourself in type lap. Did he go out on used? Were they used softs? No, they weren't.
No, they would have been new. Yeah, there were new softs for Lando Norris. George Russell now making his way for his first fly on the soft tyre. And while he does that, let's head back down to pit lane. Jen Gao.
Yes, I'm down here at the Alpine garage, and they've had the covers off on Pierre Gasly's car. Do quite a lot of work to the rear end. I think it's a suspension rod change, but they have got the car back together now. They've got this really interesting, intricate rear end cover. It's like a small one and then the larger one. They've just taken the small one off. They're doing okay this morning. They're just about to go back out on track.
Thanks, Jenny. For Pierre Gasly, desperate to get some more points on the board, you have to go back. Well, managed to pick up some points in Spain, but only his third points finish of the season, if you're including sprints in that as well. So for Pierre Gasly, who is currently sitting down in 16th in the Drivers' Championship, hoping that he can find some more this weekend, although he's failed to score points in the last few British Grand Prix that he has participated in. 39 minutes and 0 seconds exactly remain of free practice 3. Leclerc fastest, 5 thousandths of a second clear of Max Verstappen. Then comes Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Lando Norris, the top 5. Antonelli, Albon, Tsunoda, Piastri and Stroll. The top 10 was Sainz in 11th ahead of Colapinto. Then comes Hülkenberg, Gasly, Hadjar and Borsaletto. 16 drivers who have all set any kind of lap time. Some not the most competitive, just going around to scrub some tyres. We're still waiting for any kind of lap time from Fernando Alonso, who is in the pit still. Ollie Behrman is out on the track at the moment, just coming through Luffield now. Then comes Esteban Ocon in the Haas, who's just following his teammate. And Liam Lawson as well on an outlap. He's on the hard tyre in the Racing Bulls. Lawson and Hadjar both going well in the practice sessions yesterday. Let's see if they can pick up some more points after Liam Lawson managed to get 6th place last time out in Austria. It's the sound of Ollie Behrman, his first home race for the young Brit. His brother is also racing this weekend in Formula 4. So 2 Behrmans out on the Silverstone circuit across the weekend.
His poor mum. I mean, really.
Watching through gritted teeth, I imagine, the pressure that puts on. I actually spoke to Ollie Behrman on Thursday. You can listen to it on our Checker Flag preview show. He's in a very good mood. He feels very relaxed. He loves this track here. Haas bringing a little bit of an upgrade as well to the floor. Yesterday, really struggled with understeer, but Behrman has just popped himself up into 7th. It's on the medium tyre. Behrman desperate to get himself back into the points because it's actually his teammate that has been scoring the points. Behrman's had that frustrating 2 11th place finishes, which is the worst position to be in sometimes.
Yeah, I know, tantalisingly close to be watching an onboard with Lance Stroll, who absolutely does an amazing job of collecting the car. He's got it all crossed up coming out of Woodcote, and way too much oversteer, too much throttle. Does a bit of a tank slapper, and he'll have to come back in and change
Sainz had almost the exact same moment there yesterday, but Sainz did the full spin.
Yeah,
Stroll saved it just.
So that is exactly where the wind goes. It's a 180 corner. You go in going into the wind, and then you come out with the wind coming up from behind. So that will lose you downforce on the exit.
Wouldn't have done his tyres any favours whatsoever for the Canadian, who just gets bumped down to 12th as Isaac Hadjar puts his Racing Bulls on the hard tyre up inside the top 10. So a mixture of tyres then at the moment going on. Some Flovis paint on the front wing on the right-hand side of Oscar Piastri's car as well. We know they were trialling some new suspension over the last couple of races and helping Lando Norris try and find that feeling again in the front of the car. Perhaps that has worked after Austria. The other Brit we haven't quite mentioned yet, Damon Hill, was George Russell.
Yeah.
And there's been so much talk about George Russell in this week, the week before, and the week before that as well. What are your thoughts on it? Is George Russell in real danger here of being replaced by Max Verstappen.
Well, Toto's not exactly come out and and quashed it, has he? He's not gone. Oh no, I absolutely can rest assured I'm not trying to poach Max. So it must make George a little bit anxious because he doesn't have an agreement, as far as we know yet, for future. But of course, if you're Toto, you might have to just keep that window open just in case. And there are certain criteria, triggers we believe, in Max's contract that means that he's staying put unless the team doesn't perform well enough. Where that trigger is, I don't think anybody really knows, but speculation is if it's outside the top 4, and I don't know if that means construction. That would be a pretty awful season for Red Bull. Anyway, that's the state of play. George is always, I think, he never drives without giving his best, I don't think. So
I think he's having his best season so far, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's of course relishing the fact that he's got a novice driver alongside him, and he's able to use all his experience and be doing all the hard work for the team. So he's definitely vital to the team. He's got a value. Anywhere he goes, he's got a value. I think George is one of those drivers. He makes himself a bit too obvious. There's not enough mystique about him. And if he perhaps didn't promote himself quite so much, then people would be seeing him slightly differently. But I think he's one of the top drivers, very much so, one of the top drivers in Formula 1.
Do you reckon we can see a George Russell and a Max Verstappen at the same team at Mercedes?
Well, I think everyone at the moment is they're warned off going alongside Max in a team because you don't know what you're going to get. And I've seen so many guys falling down the grid order and being shown up in that second Red Bull. I just think that would be it's too much uncertainty about what's going on within the team for the teammate, for the other driver. For me, anyway, I would say, whereas you look at McLaren, you've got two world-class drivers fighting head-to-head for a world championship. There's nothing between them. There's nothing between the cars, evidently. I'm not saying that Red Bull have got different cars, but certainly some Max can drive it and get the best out of it, and even he's having trouble now to get pace out of the Red Bull.
And it seems that no matter what driver you put in that second seat, they cannot do it. Interesting, just coming across the line now, Max Verstappen on the soft tyre, 126.1. He's currently in second. Tsunoda's just done the same thing, and he is a 127.1. So he is about a second off at the moment, Max Verstappen, after they've both done some soft tyre runnings. Although Tsunoda might have been on slightly older tyres. Let's see if that gets confirmation.
Yeah, but the current state of F1, second is the big, almost a gap from the front to the back. So many cars can slot in there, and that's one of the issues I think for Tsunoda, is that now the pack is so tight that you need to be. What's the difference between Oscar and Lando this year? It's hardly even a tenth of a second. I mean, okay, last weekend it was half a second almost, but
he didn't get his final
that's an exception, to the rule. But so yeah, exactly. Didn't get a chance to see what it would have been.
Well, approaching that halfway point in practice 3, the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc is currently fastest. Podium 3 at the last 4 races, and coming back here where he made his official Formula 1 debut back in 2016 for Haas in free practice 1. And now, back once more with Ferrari, sitting pretty at the top. Charles Leclerc, hungry to get that first win of the season. He's got Lewis Hamilton alongside him, equally as hungry. And Hamilton currently making his way down through Brooklands into the right-hander of Luffield, fastest of anybody in the first sector. Luffield will spit him out through the slight right-hand kink of Woodcote, down the old pit straight towards Copse, the flat-out right-hander. 2021 came together there with Max Verstappen. 2 did not go into 1 on that occasion. Flies through Copse. A short burst, then down to the technical part of this circuit, through Maggots, Beckett's, and out through Chapel. Left, right. Then a bit of traffic from the Red Bull, just gets out of the way nicely of Yuki Tsunoda. Now DRS getting up to over 325 kilometres an hour down the hangar straight before a slight dab on the brakes into Stowe. Long sweeping right-hander. It then undulates down, then up over the crest and down again into the left-hander of Vale and out through the final corner of Club. Doesn't take any curb. She lost time in the final sector, 4 tenths adrift at the end for Lewis Hamilton. fourth fastest for the 7-time champ.
Yeah, it seemed to be sort of getting away from him after the first sector. It was getting worse and worse. I mean, actually his final sector was not as good as his own best. So maybe overworking those tyres towards the end of the lap.
Well, we have seen that that has been one of their Achilles' heels so far this weekend. But Leclerc currently quickest, ahead of Verstappen. Then comes Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli are the top 5. Behrman's up in 6th. Ahead of the 2 McLarens, Norris and Piastri. Tsunoda and Bortoletto is on the lap at the moment in 10th. Then comes Albon, Ocon, Alonso, Sainz, Hadjar is in 15th ahead of Stroll. Colapinto's down in 17th. Liam Lawson is in 18th. Nico Hulkenberg is 19th with Pierre Gasly still in the pits actually, 20th and at the back of the pack. We've got an email address, by the way, that you can send some questions in, some thoughts, some comments. f1@bbc.co.uk is the address. Send us your thoughts, your feelings, your questions. Martin does not like us talking about body warmers. He wants us to stick to F1, so apologies for that, Martin. Just got to get us warmed up.
No, okay, yeah, that's fair enough, but there wasn't anything happening. So it was, there was actually nothing on the track, so that's how we got off onto that subject.
No, but that's part of free practice 3. It's what you sign up for on Fight Sports Extra 3.
And now we have quite a few cars on the circuit, and we're watching Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris are now out there on lapping. So things are hotting up. Don't worry, we won't be talking about gilets.
Well, the emails are now lighting up with gilet chat, but we'll move on. We are through the halfway point now. 28 minutes and 56, 55, 54 seconds. You want us to talk F1? We will absolutely talk F1. And Jen Gao down in pit lane is outside Alpine.
I am, and Pierre Gasly has just been sent out. A set of these soft tyres used, and he will try and drag himself up from 20th place at the moment to somewhere more respectable.
Yeah, you have to say, I mean, Damon, what do you do if you're Alpine? Let's hear from Antonelli.
Yeah, the massive moment in 12.
Yeah, that's what the overlay says.
Big moment for Kimi Antonelli, referring to turn 12, Beckett's. Just a snap on that Mercedes, pushing hard for Kimi Antonelli, who won the F2 sprint race here at Silverstone last year. Happy hunting ground for him in the junior categories, but he is going into qualifying, just as a reminder, with a 3-place grid penalty for his crash with Max Verstappen last week in Austria. So wherever he qualifies, he will be docked 3 positions. Just to come back to Alpine, Damon, and your thoughts on their situation at the moment. I mean, it's pretty dire. Just out on the track now, Colapinto is 16th, Gasly is 20th. Now, you said, actually at the start of this year, okay, points weren't coming their way, but they didn't look too shoddy. But we know the managerial changes there aren't helping things, the driver swaps as well. Is it now a case, do you think, for Alpine that actually, Max Verstappen gets a little bit hairy coming onto the hangar straight, bit of traffic from an Alpine?
Yeah, that was not a nice place to have that, especially as you to describe what's happening. He's coming out of the exit, the Beckett section, and there was a car to one side. Maybe he had to put a bit too much lock on to avoid Gasly, and he got a bit of a slide. But his lightning fast reflexes, as we saw in Spain on the last lap. Do you remember that, when he came down to the last corner and absolutely got completely sideways and somehow managed to hold it all together? He has got the fastest reactions and skills, so he was able to catch this one, no problem.
No, but it was Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. But I mean, for them, do you think, because they could have a Mercedes power unit in the back of that Alpine next year,
yeah,
do you think that's what all actually, what this season can't be saved? It's all focus on next year for them.
I would say so, probably. I think they know that they've got a brighter future next year, and they're probably putting all the resources into that. And it's some teams just cannot keep the 2 fights going. I mean, I don't know how Red Bull did it when they had to develop their car and next year's car and still fight for a championship. They managed to pull it off. It's beyond me. I mean, it's just the amount of work that goes into being in Formula One is just humongous. And to try and build 2 cars and 2 different... Yeah, well, what was that? It's what Alex Albon is saying, but he's basically gone through cops, I think, and there was an Aston Martin on the inside. Might have surprised him.
Yeah, Alex Albon coming through cops, getting a little bit caught by surprise there. And would you put a Valtteri Bottas in the Alpine?
Yeah, I probably would. Yeah, I think Valtteri he's not done yet. He's got so much experience. He's an asset, I would say, to a team that's trying to get further up the grid. I think you'll get a good, you'll get your money's worth from him.
Yeah, well, let's see. I mean, we know he's desperate to get back into a seat. There's, of course, the 2 seats at Cadillac for next year, but we don't expect them to be fighting for points, let alone every week, but podiums and wins. I don't think even the team principal, Graham Loudon, is expecting that. They are downplaying their first year so far. But let's see if Alpine can find any more speed throughout the rest of this weekend as the sparks fly from the underside of Ollie Behrman's Haas through Copse. Verstappen Radio.
This brake bias is offset. It's like a handbrake.
Verstappen there.
Now, I'm interested. He knows what a handbrake is, because I don't remember that about you, but when's the last time they had handbrakes?
I think that's more damning about the Red Bull car. If it's like his road car, isn't it? But the brakes, not happy. I mean, he was complaining yesterday as well. Verstappen not comfortable. However, he does do this, and then the car, and then somehow Max Verstappen effect. He's up there in second.
Yeah, it's all about corner entry stability. I'm guessing, Damien, what he's talking about there is with the way the brake bias is set, he's getting too much snapping on corner entry, like a handbrake effect, basically. So too biased towards the rear, I guess.
Yeah, I'm teasing, but I mean, of course, you know, in karting, you only have braking on the rear. I mean, in some categories they have brakes in the front, but mostly you have got rear axle braking, so they're very used to going into corner with the back of the kart, a little bit skittish, but certainly in a Formula 1 car, you really don't want that. Watching some replays on our screens here of Ollie Behrman and sparks coming up, and I was going to say something about that because his car seems to be bottoming an awful lot. The ride height perhaps a little bit too low, and at high speed, of course, the cars get depressed. The springs get squashed by the amount of aero load that goes onto the...
A little bit of rain before turn 9, but nothing big.
Copy.
Charles Leclerc, a little bit of 9 before Copse.
Well, that was a good weather report, wasn't it? It's a little bit of rain, not too much. And
don't need to worry yet.
No to worry, but I thought I'd tell you. But anyway, good feedback. If it does start to... this track will soak up the odd spot, without it really affecting your grip. And then suddenly it has to have quite a bit more. But then suddenly it all gets very difficult, especially if you're on slicks.
And this is something we've seen in races and qualifying for years gone by. Such a large expanse of track here that it can be raining in one part of the circuit and bone dry in the next and start moving across. Charles Leclerc was coming through Loop and then coming through Luffield and then just backs off. They're not happy with that lap, bails out of it. He is currently the fastest driver out there, having set a lap on the soft tyre. 1:25.9, 2/10 clear of Max Verstappen, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Antonelli, the top 5. Then comes Behrman, Albon, Norris, Piastri, Tsunoda are the top 10. With only, who's out on track at the moment, Alonso, Gasly, Lawson, the 2 Ferraris and the 2 Mercedes drivers as George Russell begins the lap on the soft tyre, making his way down the Hamilton straight into the flat-out right-hander of Abbey, curves through Farm, and then braking into the right-hander of Village.
Yeah, I think Lewis was on a lap. I think Charles's moment out of Luffield meant he went slowly after that, and I think he got in the way of Lewis just as Lewis went through the Beckett section, so I'm not sure that timed.
Possibly Lewis is, he's not exactly had the best lap of his life. F1 at bbc.co.uk. Thank you for your questions that are coming in. If you're at the track as well here, if you're around the circuit, let us know, and let us know where you're watching from. You can do that on the email or on Twitter or X, however it's called these days, hashtag BBC F1. Lindsay says, my boyfriend James and I turned 40 this year, and what a place to spend it. They are here supporting Max Verstappen. And Sam has got in touch saying, hi Harry and Damon. No, hi Andrew. Doesn't want to talk to Benny. But it's great having Damon back in the commentary box. I would agree. I've just seen the Hill documentary. Absolutely brilliant. Not at the circuit this year. Will return next year. Of course, this is your big week, Damon, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's out. The Hill documentary. How has it all been? The premiere. What can we look forward to?
I want to say that feedback is now becoming quite typical. The reaction has been incredible. And so people are liking it. And so that we're very, very pleased with it. I put it together with, I didn't do it. I'm the subject of it, but I partly put it together with Simon Lazenby, who used to work with, as you know, at Sky, his Silver Entertainment production company, and beautifully directed by Alex Holmes and Cinzia Baldessari, who both went through all the editing and stuff, masses and masses of archive stuff and own footage and all the rest of it. But anyway, it's worth a watch. It's a very exciting Formula One film.
We'll give it the full plug. How can we watch it? Where can we watch it?
Am I in it?
You might well be. Yeah, I would say if you look closely, some of the crowd scenes, they've got plenty of journalists in there as well. So
it's like Drive to Survive. Is there a Benson?
I meant about a particular moment. Am I in it?
I don't. Well, you should have been in it. I know what you're getting at now. But of course, there is a crucial part of my career was I had the shock announcement I've been sacked by and it was broken by this guy sitting next to me, Andrew, and I had a few words with him, but because I didn't believe it, I thought it was just.
You threw me out of the motorhome, in fact, Damon, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I said, "You're not welcome here."
What you actually said, you've made yourself look very stupid, is what you said.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so about. Of course,
but we've buried the hatchet long ago, haven't we?
That's no hard feelings, and you're doing your job brilliantly, of course, by getting the intel way before anyone else, even me.
Yeah, that's top of the CV, Andrew.
That is my warning. That if George is not listening because he's driving, but I mean, you have to have intel, really good intel in this business. You can be replaced without even knowing it.
I was a little bit naive that day because I went. Oh, here's some radio.
Nearly lost it.
Charles Leclerc had another moment in the Ferrari. Even though I knew it was a massive story, obviously, I didn't realise quite how big an impact it was going to have when I got to Hockenheim that Thursday. Anyway.
Well, it was on the front cover of Autosport, and so I arrive at the circuit, and someone just thrusts his Autosport into my hand, and it's basically you're fired. Well, they might as well said, "Do you want to go home now?" But I still had it till the end of the season, so all that drama is in the film.
I mean, Gasly's not even looking.
Yeah, okay, we saw it, reporting it.
That was Liam Lawson on Pierre Gasly having to get down the inside of him through Copse, having just overtaken him out through Luffield, but they were both going incredibly slowly.
Yeah, I mean, what do these guys expect? I do worry about this business of we're watching the onboard, and they actually did get a bit tetchy there between the two of them. Liam just accelerating past Gasly again, but you can't completely disappear, and if you're going around the circuit at a significantly slower pace than guys going flat out, then on a circuit like this, the closing speed is absolutely huge. And I know they've got spotters telling them to get out of the way. You just can't disappear on this track. And if you stay on the racing line, you're in trouble. And if you go off the racing line, you're on the exit of the corner. All these things are a big problem. And I don't want to say this because I'm anxious that something will happen with the current system we have at the moment, where cars are doing really crawling around the track and other cars going flat out.
That incident has been noted, by the way. Lawson has been noted for that, driving erratically between Luffield and on the way to Copse.
And just also the moment we haven't mentioned, because it all happened too quickly.
Charles Leclerc.
The Charles Leclerc one. He locked up going into the club corner.
Yeah.
And the back of the car just suddenly snapped away in the way that it would do if it was wet. I
suddenly thought, is there maybe a bit of rain in that? I'm just trying to look out from our commentary box. I mean, there's covered grandstands opposite us. However, there is the hospitality outside the hotel. No one's putting any umbrellas or any raincoats up, and I'm sure Jenny can give us a weather update wherever she's standing at some point. Jenny, as we hear the applause from the Lando stand of Lando Norris, he just goes to the top of the times with a 1:25.6. Is there any rain on the horizon?
I mean, maybe on the horizon, but not above my head, you'll be pleased to know. One of the Alpines is just coming in, so it's going to get a bit noisy. You can normally tell because a whole grandstand will stand up at the same time and put on their Packer Max, or maybe hold an umbrella if they're really selfish, or maybe at the back row, and no one's doing that at the moment. I think it's just picked up the wind a little bit, so it might be a bit gusty, but no wet stuff.
Thanks, Jenny. Well, there were cheers a moment ago for Lando Norris going to the top, but he has been pipped by 40 thousandths of a second. Oscar Piastri now fastest. The championship leader goes top with a 1:25.566 for the Aussie.
The real significant thing about that was he wasn't quicker than Lando for most of that until the last sector. So he's managed his tyres and kept a bit left for the last part of the lap, but he only just went faster than Lando, as we've been saying earlier. The difference is minuscule, but they're 3.5 tenths quicker than the Ferrari.
just hearing the sounds of Carlos Sainz from a few moments ago on his way down the old pit straight towards Copse. Just gets out of it, and luckily there's runoff there he can run into.
That would have got his attention, because that is a super quick corner. He's turned in, and I think he's lost it on the way in, probably because the wind is behind as you go into Copse, and he's had to use quite a lot of the escape road, but at least he didn't hit anything.
No, lives to fight another day, does that one. Carlos Sainz is currently down in 11th. I just want to bring you back, Damon, because you need to do the proper plug. Where can we watch?
Oh, it's on Sky Documentaries. Yeah. So you need to have Sky. But then it will. I don't know. It'll have a life afterwards. But I'm not completely up to speed on all the distribution.
I enjoyed your Instagram ahead of the premiere, where you put it out and got the premiere date wrong, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I had to correct it. So. I basically don't get me to do any of this stuff, because
you've done it now.
But I did correct it, so it was all good stuff. And
we'll go to Simon Lazenby next door and just ask him for the actual dates and times.
Yeah, I mean, it just came out a day later than I thought.
Keeping everyone on their toes. Brilliant. Well, we will look forward to watching that and enjoying that. And if you have already, and Damon would love the feedback.
Okay,
if you've got it, as long as it's positive.
We're now
Verstappen on a lap.
Yes, Max is on a lap, and as I was just about to say, because he's done the fastest first sector, so I've got a purple first sector. I'm interested to see how this last half of the lap goes, and of course, as I said, that the middle sector is not the quickest. So has he overworked the tyres in the first part of the lap? As we're coming up to the last part of his lap, let's see if he does another purple sector. It'll make me look rather daft, but quite commonly does. No, he's done a very good lap, and he's actually split the McLarens by a tiny fraction of time. Only 19 hundredths of a second.
Yeah, well, interesting. This is the sound of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who is coming through the final corner now. Let's see how close the second Red Bull can get. And that's about right, half a second back for Tsunoda. It puts him up into 5th, but that is really there or thereabouts where that second driver has been so far in comparison to Max Verstappen.
I would say he'd be quite pleased with that. I mean, it's half a second around here. It's a long lap, so I mean,
it's decent.
Yeah, I mean, when we were in Austria, of course, there's a short lap time. It's 1 minute, or was it 5? I can't remember. So you've got a bit more of a lap around here, so you do tend to get a bigger spread of time. But I would say that's reasonably good from Tsunoda.
It's a big step forward from Austria, because I think he was about a second off in Austria, wasn't he, around a much shorter lap, as you say, and that's only half a second around, so only half a second, still a lifetime in Formula 1 for someone in the same car. But yeah, the margins are so tight at the front. 19.019, 19 thousandths between Piastri and Verstappen in first and second places, and Norris is only 40 thousandths behind Piastri in third. And Charles Leclerc, who's been looking like the quickest guy on track so far this session, is about to start his lap by the look of things.
But this is where we're getting into the very last chance saloon for these guys who are wanting to get their car set up for qualifying. We've only got 12 minutes left of this session, but when Lando went out and was quickest, the crowd reacted. You know, it's starting to heat up here as we get into the last few minutes of their last chance to prepare themselves for qualifying.
Just having a look at Yuki Tsunoda's lap from a moment ago. A little bit twitchy coming through Luffield. Charles Leclerc going quick in the first sector. By the way, just from race control, that erratic driving from Liam Lawson has been reviewed, no further investigation. And then a couple of minutes later, he's been given a black and white flag for driving erratically. So,
really?
Liam Lawson is really having a good Saturday so far.
Yeah, no, we changed our minds. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was very bad. And wow, that's a bit unusual. But anyway.
Well, that's 12.19, no further investigation. 12.21, given a black and white flag for driving erratically. So Lawson then will have to be on best behaviour for the last 11.5 minutes of this session. Right, Charles Leclerc is just making his way onto the hangar straight now. Personal best in the first sector. Making his way down towards Stowe now. Hajar is also on a lap in the Racing Bulls behind him, but this will be an interesting lap to see where this puts Charles Leclerc. He's just gone purple in the middle sector, fastest of anybody, with just a couple of corners from home for the AlphaTauri Monegasque as we gear up towards that all-important qualifying. This the last chance they have to practice, and for Leclerc, he does it nicely and heads to the top of the times by over half a tenth of a second on 1:25.4.
Over half a tenth of a second. I mean,
a huge gap.
Huge. Yeah, it's almost a tenth of a second. I mean, really, it is unbelievably tight there. The top three drivers,
within a tenth.
Four drivers. Yeah, it is ridiculous. But we've definitely got a fight in our hands, I think, here.
The Ferraris are in this fight, aren't they? They are in the fight for pole.
Completely. And we're watching an onboard of Lewis. Again, I think that's Luff. Oh, no, that was Club. He was coming out of there and he was getting a few slides and wrestling with the steering wheel. So not a happy boy. But again, that's where the wind changes. So it's blowing from behind again. So hardly surprising that happened.
Leclerc fastest then with 10 minutes and 5, 4 and 3 seconds remaining. Ahead of Piastri, Verstappen, Norris on an outlap is fourth. Tsunoda, the top 5. Then comes Behrman in the Haas, 6/10 adrift. Behrman having a better day today than he did yesterday. Albon is in 7th on an outlap at the moment. His teammate Carlos Sainz has just finished a lap and put himself up into 12th. Hadjar and Lawson round out the top 10. Then comes Hamilton, Sainz, Ocon, Antonelli and Hülkenberg the top 15. Bortoletto is 16th ahead of Alonso. Colapinto, Stroll and Pierre Gasly also on an outlap is 20th, but the pace starting to ramp up then. The Ferraris look like they're in the fight for pole position this weekend, and they are also strong in race pace. The McLarens always strong, both Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Max Verstappen up there too. Yuki Tsunoda not looking as far away as he has done since being in that Red Bull. Let's see if he can continue that promising form into qualifying. This is setting us up really nicely as the clouds above us still loom grey. There is still a threat of rain for this session and for qualifying. The temperatures have dropped and Lewis Hamilton is going quicker. He's got a red flag out on track as Lewis Hamilton was fastest in the first sector.
That's a shame, isn't it? Because he was on a good lap, but they've red flagged. We don't know why yet. But I was watching that lap unfold and he's just got a bit of car on the circuit. It looks like a piece of aero off of one of the cars.
So yeah, is there a bit of front wing? Where is that? Just trying to see which corner. Is that coming into Stowe?
It looks like entry to Stowe.
Yeah, it could be Stowe.
Yeah.
And it's right on the racing line, and it is a fair bit of carbon fibre.
Yeah, it looks like a front... Oh, it's one of those ears off of the wheels, isn't it?
One of the shrouds.
Do you think it's one of those, what they used to call the eyebrows or the moustaches, or what they call them? The bits that
see who's missing
scoop up over the top of the wheels. That's what it looks like.
Well, red flag, so we wouldn't get to see what Lewis Hamilton, but he certainly looked like he was going to join his teammate right up at the sharp end. Was fastest of anybody in the first sector. Green in the middle sector, personal best for Hamilton. But with that red flag, everybody has to come back to the pits. While we do that, one of the amazing marshals around this circuit will make their way onto the circuit and clear that. Aston Martin, they are having to wheel Lance Stroll back from the exit of the pit lane.
He's got, just looking at the smaller sections of his lap, and he actually had a purple. Is that a purple
a purple mini sector in the final sector,
and the rest of them were yellow, so not as quick as his quickest lap. So maybe it was fading away at the end there for Lewis. But the car looked good. He looked committed. He looked like he was getting something out of that car, and that Ferrari is definitely a good car around this circuit. Charles Leclerc has shown that. I would say that McLaren are not showing everything they've got. So typically, they don't. The guys at the front tend to box a bit clever, but Ferrari usually show everything they've got, and because they just want to be seen to be quick. So, and they are. So, it's looking okay for them at the moment.
It certainly is. Everybody making their way back to the pits, just waiting for Kimi Antonelli to come in, and he does so now. Red flag out in practice 3, but because it's practice, the clock continues to count down. 6 minutes and 26, 25, 24 seconds remaining. All the cars now back into pit lane. Jenny, what can you see?
Yeah, I'm just down here at Red Bull. One of the mechanics just came out, stood in the pit lane and held his hand out just to check if it's raining. It's not at the moment. But it is threatening any minute now. And Red Bull were quite lucky with the timing of that red flag. They were just about to be sent out on fresh tyres. Bearman Radio.
Bodywork on track might actually be yours.
Oh. Is it mine?
It was Ollie Bearman's Haas. That's the reason. And the Marshall, who has made her way out onto the track to pick up the bit of carbon fibre, gets a bit of celebration as she heads back out. Sorry, Jen, back to you, but it was Bearman, the responsible man for the red flag.
Yes, so cars are going back out. The Mercedes, there's a bit of a traffic jam actually. The Mercedes is trying to overtake one of the Alpines. Not very clever, but the Red Bulls are just about to go out now.
Thank you, Jenny. Session will resume at 12:31 local time. So in just a couple of minutes' time, we will get back on to FP3 running, and the last 5 or so minutes before we'll be qualifying later on. You can listen to qualifying for the British Grand Prix and the fight for pole position in full on 5 Sports Extra 2. We'll be on air from 5 to 3 this afternoon with myself and Damon, Andrew and Jenny, the whole team, guiding you through that one on who will take pole position for the 76th British Grand Prix, the 60th around this Silverstone circuit.
Can you say bun fight on the BBC?
Well, you've done it now.
I've done it now. This is going to be
I'll check the emails.
This is going to be a bit of a bun fight because they're all queuing up, and the clock is still ticking down.
We missed the boat here.
So I think Nico Hülkenberg has just confirmed what I thought, which is it's going to be very difficult to get all these people out of the pit lane and get them round on a warm-up lap without them tripping all over each other.
Now that's frustrating for Hülkenberg because his teammate is right at the front of the queue, and they obviously haven't been able to get Hülkenberg, more importantly, they haven't been able to get his at least a wheel over the white line that separates the fast lane and the main lane and the slow lane of the pit lane, which would give him right of way. So he now has to let everybody through. He's going to try and squeeze himself through.
This is like trying to pull out on Park Lane, isn't it? And
he's done it though. He's done it. Yeah, fairly easily. Slots in behind Isaac Hadjar, and I think who's let him? Lando Norris has very kindly let Hülkenberg into the
He's a nice
lane.
guy. He's a very nice chap, and I think if we all drove like that on the road, we'd have less traffic and less stress.
Particularly around Silverstone.
Just let people out if they're trying to get out.
Is there a way of having less traffic around Silverstone? There doesn't seem to be this weekend.
I think me and producer Paddy were stuck on the inside of Silverstone for about half an hour yesterday with a closed gate, denying us exit. They wouldn't let us leave.
It's when you let someone out and the people behind you hoot because they're angry that you've let someone out.
All part of the game, all part of the fun of the British Grand Prix. Right, last few minutes of free practice 3 coming your way. Lando Norris making his way out of the pit lane exit, which feeds you through halfway through Farm Curve Turn 2, where I watched the 2013 British Grand Prix. It was the first ever race that I went to as a fan.
2013?
Yeah, I know. Sorry,
that might have been one of my first seasons with...
Were you doing the telly?
Yeah, I think I was. So
it was the tyre... Remember that race? It was the tyre blowouts.
Yeah,
we had lots of tyre blowouts.
Fantastic. It was such drama.
Lewis Hamilton from Mercedes on course to win, but then he had a tyre blowout. Then Sebastian Vettel was on course to win. Then I think his Red Bull went kaput. And Nico Rosberg won the race. And then they changed the way the tyres worked for the rest of the season, and that flipped the order a little bit. And then, well, Pirelli have been trying to make the tyres better ever since.
They weren't happy about their tyres blowing up, I know that, so neither were the drivers, but it was dramatic to watch. Of course, we've had some astonishing moments in our sport with Nigel Mansell tyre blowout and all the tyre blowouts in Adelaide all those years ago in the last race. But of course, a lot of drama.
A lot of drama. Let's see if we get any more later today, or indeed on Sunday. By the way, the full British Grand Prix will be on BBC Radio 5 Live on Sunday. We'll have build-up from 1:30 ahead of the lights out at 2 o'clock for the Grand Prix. With a minute and a half left, though, cars making their way out for one final lap, and more importantly, to get some practice starts from the grid line. And we just saw George Russell a few moments ago.
Yeah, it looked like George's done a quick lap, and then he's got
he locks
blown off the track. Where was that?
Coming down towards through Farm and then coming into Abbey.
Yes, that's it, Farm.
And then, well, he gets a lock-up on the front right and just sends him deep, doesn't it? There's a bit of traffic.
Again, that's where the wind...
Oh, crash, and it's Gabriel Bortoleto, and it's in the Maggots-Beckett's complex. He's found the wall, he's in the gravel. The front left of the car has made contact, the wheel off, and the suspension damaged right at the close of this session. And that is the last thing you want right at the end of the final practice session after a red flag for the reigning Formula 2 champion, the rookie in the Sauber, who scored his first points in Formula 1 last weekend in Austria.
Yeah, I'm looking at, he hasn't hit the barrier. He's in the gravel, but his left front is off. So I'm trying to work out...
Was it maybe it's a failure?
So it does look like he might have had something go wrong in the car, and that's why he's there.
We'll have to get a replay. We'll wait for it. But he's resting in the gravel. He is moving. He's getting out of the car. Is Bortoleto, the 20-year-old from Sao Paulo, and he's made it through Maggots and Beckett's, and it's in that little bit between Chapel and when you come onto the Hangar Straight. As he's out of the car now. Or is there a bit of rain coming down there, or the camera lens is a little foggy?
No, I think he's shooting from behind a fence.
Here we go.
That's what it was.
So this is the sound of Bortoleto through Maggots into the left-hander. Beckett's, he loses it. And round onto the grass he spins, and just the bumping over the grass, the asphalt, and then comes to a rest in the gravel is enough.
You okay? You okay, mate?
I'm okay, but suspension is broken.
Yeah, I saw that. No problem. We will repair that for quality.
I think he's got a tank slapper. I don't think the suspension broke, that's why it went off. It might be. We're having a look from another angle, and the car's going right. Yeah, maybe. No, its suspension is fine. And then he hits a bump as he goes across the grass, and that may have been just a severe bump that broke the suspension.
That's what's done it.
But he hasn't actually hit anything. He's gone in the gravel, but he would have got away with that if he hadn't hit this lump of something, perhaps in the grass, where the suspension just took too much of a shock.
Lance Stroll got the perfect view of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was as he was spinning backwards over the grass. We're just getting an onboard look at it. Tank slapper tries to correct it, can't do it.
Yeah, there's something in the grass. There's something as he's
sort of a hill, a bit of a mound.
Yeah, but severe enough of a blow to literally smash the suspension on the left front. So that's a bit of a shame for him, really, because he would have got away with it. It might have just been in the gravel, but now he's got a massive rebuild before we go into qualifying. But nobody got a chance to have a go in that session, as far as I can tell. It was just too many cars. They had to do a warm-up lap. The time was running out, and they stopped the session early because of Bortoleto. So going into qualifying, it's going to be a lot of unknowns. I think there's going to be drivers who are slightly uncomfortable and not sure what they've got underneath them, but we've got a bit of form at least. We've got some Ferraris, McLarens and Red Bulls up there competitive.
Certainly do. That is the end of the final practice session. Oliver Bearman, did he have a bit of a skirmish on that final lap? Because he's made it back to the pit lane, but he's missing his front wing. And he's got grass and gravel all over his front wheels. He's out of the car. He's obviously made it back. But it looks like Ollie Bearman may have had a bit of a skirmish somewhere. We're just going to see it. It's as he's coming into the pit lane, brakes to get down to 80 kilometers an hour, locks up, spins into the wall.
Yes, my brakes are cold. Really? Oh, I'm sorry.
Cold brakes for Ollie Bearman. As soon as he touched the brakes, round it went, and he's actually lucky to get away with just the front wing falling off. Max Verstappen got the best view of it. He was the next car to come in, and has to come into a pit lane as you brake for the 80-kilometre pit speed limit.
So you're kind of encouraged to practice that, coming into the pit lane hot and getting the speed down quickly. But he's gone for the brakes, and of course you heard him say the brakes were cold, so they've grabbed just as he's done that. And that's another one of those things that goes into the experience box as a racing driver. You go, ooh, I remember I did that once and the brakes were cold. I better not do that again.
Well, nice bit of merchandise for the marshals to try and sneak home. Nice bit of front wing from the Haas.
Sure,
maybe a bit of carbon fibre from the Sauber. You might be able to fit a piece in the pocket. Anyway, so some rookie mistakes and collisions right at the end of that session, but free practice 3 is now over, and Charles Leclerc for Ferrari is fastest, a 1:25.498. Nothing though splitting the top three. Oscar Piastri second, Max Verstappen third, ahead of Lando Norris. Tsunoda up in the top 5 ahead of Behrman. Then comes Albon, Russell, Hadjar, Liam Lawson the top 10. Hamilton didn't get that final lap in 11th. Sainz, Ocon, Antonelli and Hulkenberg is 15th ahead of Bortoletto, Alonso, Colapinto, Stroll and Gasly, the 20 drivers in that session. Right then, it's looking pretty exciting for qualifying later on this afternoon, and you can hear it all on 5 Sports Extra 2. Join us from 5 to 3 in the afternoon. Thank you, Damon. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Jenny. We shall see you then in a few hours' time as we go qualifying for the British Grand Prix.